welcome to our first episode of our Top 3 series from TourismStrong. In this episode, we will be interviewing Liz Bittner from Travel South and seeing what's going on with them. In our first question, we have Mark Topley. So Mark, take it and run.
Thank you. It's a pleasure meeting you. My name is Mark Topley, and I actually, unfortunately, saw the effects of COVID firsthand. I was actually laid off about 2 weeks ago. Prior to that, I worked for Entertainment Benefits Group, Cirque du Soleil, and Disney in New York. And my first question is kind of a two-parter. Firstly, how do you see the job market as it currently stands and how it will evolve in a sort of post-COVID world, pre and post-vaccine? And what learnings do you think your company and others will continue to implement post-COVID, whether it be workplace setup or cleanliness, things like that?
Right. Well, nice to meet you, Mark. So because you were in New York, you're not really part of the Southern family, but we are all welcoming. So
Thank you.
You can hang with us now, and you can, you'll now be a Southern ambassador. When you ask that question, I know that I joined thousands of hospitality and travel professionals that have been really saddened and devastated by all these furloughs and layoffs and permanent redundancies of jobs in our sector. As a matter of fact, there are about 9 million direct tourism jobs and another 6.8 million indirect jobs, so making about 15.8 million that are dependent on travel and leisure. We are by far the largest small business employer in the United States. And this COVID pandemic and then the ensuing economic crisis has really disproportionately affected your friends, my friends, you, our industry. The data from the U.S. Travel Association really shows that as of April, we had lost over 5.9 million jobs in our sector. And my heart just really hurts even to say or recount those figures. So the travel industry has really been working nonstop through the U.S. travel industry to make Congress aware and accountable for what is really devastating. They're saying that we're in a recession, but the travel industry is really in a depression. And, yes, there were a few industries like the airline transportation industry and some small businesses that could apply for the PPP, the Payroll Protection Program. And they received some monies, but a great deal of our industry was left out, including destination marketing organizations, 501c6s, and quasi-governmental agencies, and the motor coach industry. I remain hopeful that the next round of hope stimulus that we may not be overlooked, that our workforce may be stabilized a bit, but ultimately, I think, directly to your point, travel industry needs people to travel. That's what's going to bring back the jobs. And those the travel isn't going to really happen until 3 things can be addressed. And these aren't my things. This is like lots of really smart people, including Carol Ream, who's the Vice President of Research at Brand USA. And she really sort of breaks them down into means, motive, and opportunity. First, all of the means, the government restrictions that can and do prohibit or de-incentivize in-state travel, intrastate travel, and international travel have to go away. Those things have to go away in order for travel to come back. The second is people need to feel safe. The virus either has to be contained or a vaccine, or at least a clear understanding of how to avoid getting sick. And then the last of it is really the opportunity. And so that's where the travel industry really can sort of shine in our creativeness, because we need flexible and help people feel comfortable and accept and have a willingness to accept some risk, because that's what travel is. You're sort of going outside of your comfort zone to experience something new, or go to a great Disney play, or and use your monies to be a little bit taking a risk, both financially and experientially. So my long-winded answer to your short question, Mark, is I believe that jobs will come back as soon as the travel industry opens up. I think specifically your question about remote versus office settings, I think that will depend upon your job function and what sector you're in. As a principal, my personal belief is that people are very social. And so while some of these jobs people have figured out how to do them remotely during this time period because we had to, that ultimately, I think it would be an interesting sociology study sometime down the road to look and see how many of those jobs actually stayed remote. Because I think that like being able to do it and wanting to do it are two different things. My team and I were pretty small. We've had we've sort of come up with a hybrid situation. We have some that are working remotely, that have school-age kids or health issues, and, having flexibility of coming in the office. But none of that's going to really happen until really travel comes back. And so the billion-dollar question is when? And, I'm hopeful. I believe that it will be sooner than later. And I do believe that every day we are one day closer. Do I know exactly when that is? No, but I really do think that this is a cathartic time for us to really, as an industry, look at how we've been doing things and what we've been doing. And as time comes back, the jobs will come back too. It has to. That's what the economy is based. The United States economy is based on our service industry.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Hey, I think Angelo, you're next.
Hi, Liz. I'm Angelo Anacardo with Gulf South Travel Services. We're a local receptive company in New Orleans, handling travel to the Gulf South, Alabama, Mississippi, and of course, Louisiana. Yeah. Has Travel South done a survey at all of the tour operators to get a feel of when they think their groups will be traveling? And if so, will you be sharing that with your Travel South database?
So, Angelo, thank you for being in a sector that is really, really needed. We appreciate, we are Travel South International and Travel South Domestic are the pillars of supporting the receptive tour operator segment. A lot of folks don't necessarily know that you really offer all the on-the-ground services that are so required and that make someone's trip, whether from California or from overseas, to be just important and authentic when they come to all of those Gulf South states. They could wander around, but you can help them make sure that they're going to use their time and go to the cool little restaurants and, have the neat little experiences that are so important to making an authentic experience for the entirety of the trip. But to answer your question, so no, we haven't done a survey per se, but we have 3 initiatives going on right now that sort of help us keep a pulse on what's going on in the tour and travel industry. The first is in the domestic market. We think that that's going to be the first to recover. I don't think you have to be a rocket scientist to figure that out. And so we've been really focused on sort of that inspirational, keeping the South top of mind. And we've been using our great ambassadors, the journalists, who write and publish inspirational content. We have a new newsletter that we've been deploying about 2 times every month that we started in June, that is supported by a robust media center with assets from the states that have royalty-free photos and videos and story ideas and contacts. And I will say that we don't have Gulf South Travel Services as a Travel South ambassador listed on our site. So after we get off this call, let's hook back up offline so we can make sure then put you up there. And that website is industry@travelsouthusa.com. That's the first thing. The second thing that we've been doing is we're calling them dates with a tour operator. And we've been having these listening and learning conversations so that we're ready to go when it's time to go. And so far these dates have really been super effective. Then in September, we're planning on doing sort of our next step will be launching a roadshow series, which we were planning to do anyway. Obviously, we're going to, keep our eye on whether it's safe to travel at that point, but we're hoping to get out to the tour operators and really sort of get an opportunity to talk one-on-one. And then last but not least, in terms of sort of monitoring the pulse, we have an incredibly strong social media network with close to 1 million ambassadors of travel around the world. So tour operators and travel agents that love the South, that sell the South, that talk to us in their language. and follow our social media global pages around the world. And then a whole series of tour operators, again, around the world that we interact with, about 400 plus that have come to International Showcase over the last couple of years. So a lot of what we're doing is monitoring that sentiment. We have a great social media partner, Sparkloft, and so we're not only actively engaging them in language, but we're also gathering that travel sentiment so that, again, when we're ready and when it's time, that we're conserving our resources enough so that we're on the go line when we're ready to go with some, with sort of programming that will help us bust out of the gate and really have a stellar recovery. So no, I don't do a survey, but that's a good idea. We might add that one too.
I've been doing it briefly with my own clients. I just call them and say, what's the pulse on travel, in your area? And it seems like the consensus is the groups are ready to travel. They're just waiting for everything to get better and have the confidence to start doing it, but they're antsy. They're ready to get back on the road again.
Absolutely. I think groups and individuals are both, I have adult children that are in college, and, there's nobody that's more sick of them being home or me being, they're being home in my home than us. So it's just a matter of time, and I think all those other things that I mentioned really have to happen. And, we certainly don't want big resurgence of COVID cases. And so we have to get the pandemic portion out of the way. And that's more a health issue than it is a travel and tourism or an economic issue.
Yes. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tracy Francis with Visit Baton Rouge. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. And Liz, it's so good to see you. So my question is very similar to Angelo's, but it's relating to international tourism. So Liz, what is your forecast for visitors for 2020 going into 2021? Where do you see the visitors coming from immediately? And with that in mind, what are Travel South's plans for promoting the Southern U.S., given the depleted budgets of Travel South members?
Yeah. Hi, Tracy. Gosh, it seems like a lifetime ago that we were together in Baton Rouge. For those of you who don't know, Travel South Domestic was in Baton Rouge, and we actually departed on March 11th. And that was the evening. March 11th is the night that President Trump came on and sort of first announced that the COVID pandemic was very much a real thing, and that some of the states were going to start shutting down. So we were very, very fortunate and to complete what was an amazing show, and your team did a wonderful, wonderful job of showing everyone all the cool things that there are to do in Baton Rouge. And all of our 700 and something delegates went home happy, and they all remained healthy. And so
absolutely,
I'm very, very blessed to have be able to say that. So the answer to your question is, If I was a forecaster, I would be a bazillionaire right now, right? Because there are only two jobs in the world that you can forecast and always be wrong, and that's a weather person or an economist. Like 50% of the time they're wrong. It's going to rain. It's not going to rain. The stock market's going to go up. The stock market's going to go down. But all that being said, from sort of listening to operators to having lots of conversations, I've probably talked more in the last, and I'm a talker, but I know I've talked more in the last 3 months than I've ever talked in my life. I think that there will be just like everyone has really sort of identified, there will be sort of 4 phases of this recovery that will guide the tour operators as well as the travelers. The first is going to be local, the second is going to be regional, then it'll be national, then it'll be international. So we're sort of fourth on the rung here, Tracy, but I think that some of the things that we're doing right now lay groundwork for a really strong recovery in international, from certain markets to certain places in 21, And then that will get a little better in 22. And then that'll get a little better in 23. You know, is it going to be this great V-shaped recovery that everybody's talking about? Probably not. I'd love to believe it is, but probably not. And so, you know, instead of sort of worrying about the spilled milk last year, we're going to really focus on what we can do going forward. So some of the tactics that we're doing right now include videos and photos and repurposing media that that the state tourism offices and the CVBs have already had in their arsenal, and redeploying those and making them easy. There's a whole section on our website about how to download royalty-free photography, as all these international tour operators are desperately trying to save their customers from not canceling their, you know, they had a vacation planned this year. They didn't get to take it. They don't want those people to cancel. They want them to, they want to use their credits to take a vacation in 21. So having all of the infrastructure ready for that to happen. And some of those that were maybe planning on a more of a city stay travel experience are going to be a little more interested in a little more rural communities. You know, just like domestically, I think the drive market, the fly drive market's going to be really hot. I think that, you know, I think that we have to watch where the airlines are going and where the gateway airport is and really play to our strengths in that. And, you know, the great news about the Travel South region is that we have about 5 really strong international airports that I think will continue. You know, obviously ATL and here in Atlanta, Dallas Fort Worth, the Houston hub, the Chicago hub, and then Dulles in Virginia. So we've got, you know, all the 3 major carriers flying in with strong gateways, and then we have, you know, sort of what the international carriers are going to also be doing. We're also really looking at actively looking at partnerships. The states in the Travel South region have really been talking to a lot of the receptive tour operators about relaunch programs, and Travel South is working to sort of leverage the cost of those programs for reentry for the cities in the states, so that they can afford to come in with great deals and great media, which is what's going to drive the demand. And then last, we are very close to being able to announce that we're going to have what we're going to call a catch up with your favorite tour operator scheduled video meetings for everyone who attended International Showcase in 2019. You'll get to redo a call or a meeting with the operators. It will be free. We're not charging we're working to not be able to not charge for that, which really then just sets us up for a robust program and laying the groundwork for 2021 in New Orleans.
Awesome.
So that's what we're doing.
Sounds good. Thank you. It's very inclusive.
Yeah. So it's a very challenging time to be in the tourism industry. And, you know, y'all are, you know, right there with us. But I also, again, we launched a video series a couple of weeks ago called One Day Closer, which is how I really got sort of hooked up with Marcia. And that isn't just a campaign. I think that it embodies what all of us believe, that we're just every day, we're just one day closer to, you know, this new normal being accepted and everyone's being in our reality. And I come back to, you know, in the 70s, there was a lot of people said that, you know, those things, seat belts in cars, they're restrictive. Who would want to wear them? I don't understand why the cars even put them in there. And you had large groups of people that said, you know, they're not safe. And today they're a law. Everybody wears them. They keep us safe. I think that, you know, next thing, you know, TSA was totally revamped and really invented because of 9/11. And now it's just, you just know when you're going to the airport that you're going to have to take your shoes off and you're going to have to go through some monitoring system because it helps us be safe. I think that there will be things in the travel industry that will be exactly like that. And as soon as they are identified and there's a comfort level for doing those things, then travel is going to come back, because we are social people and everybody wants to travel. And every day we're just one day closer to that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Liz, for your time. This has been super insightful, and I'm sure our audience as well will think so. So thanks to all of you guys for joining us today. This has been absolutely wonderful. And yes, spread the word about this new series, Our Top 3, and we look forward to getting back into action together.
Thanks. Bye, Martha.
Yeah.